Hello, my name is Annisa Fissilmi, but everybody calls me Icha. And in this video, I'm going to talk about speech situations and speech events. I don't know if you ever realized that all of the conversations that we have in our lives, with more analysis, you will find out a lot more than it actually is on the surface. So this is one of the things that I'm going to talk to you about, some theories related to speech events. Let's move on to the things that we're going to talk about. First is I'm going to introduce you about what is speech situations and what is speech events. And then second, I'm going to focus more on speech situations. Next is we move on to speaking hymns, which is a model by Mr. Himes. And then I'm going to give you some examples for more understanding of the theories that I just proposed previously in that regards. And then article reviews to give more examples of what we talked about. And then conclusion. In pragmatics, there are two key concepts that are very essentials for understanding how meaning is shaped in communications. And those two things are speech situations and speech events. So at least now you will know it's not only in pragmatics, but you can also apply it from other approaches. But in pragmatics specifically, by looking at these two concepts are actually very important to understand more about how meaning is structured in some sort of communication or conversation. Leach in 1983, in his book called Principles of Pragmatics, he explained that pragmatics studies meaning in relation to the speech situation that focuses on how meaning changes depending on context. Highlight one word there is context. So context is really important in pragmatics because it's like you're trying to understand something by looking at its context. In speech situation, there are 5 things that are important in looking at the situation of a speech. First, there's addressers and addressees. Addressers are the persons who produce the utterances, and then addressees are persons to whom the utterances are addressed. It's basically about looking at who are involved in the communication itself, and from the ones who produce the utterances, the one who says something, and the one who listens. And then second, there's context of utterance. Context of utterance basically means the context or the situations that are happening that surrounds the communication itself. And then next, we have goals of utterance. Goals of utterance basically means the function of the utterance or the speaker's intention of producing such utterance. The fourth is the utterance as a form of act or activity called a speech act. Austin, however, in 1962 refers this to a locutionary act. And Leach exemplifies this by, it's like asking, would you please be quiet? It's like an act. So the utterance itself is like an act. Or what do you want? Like, why are you saying that? And then lastly, there is the utterance as a product of a verbal act. So it's basically how the verbal act itself is like as a product of the utterance. It's like the verbal act itself is as the product of the utterance. Okay, now we're moving on to speaking hymns. That is actually explained it a little bit more detailed. So, Del Himes in 1972 introduced something called speaking model. So speaking model is the one that breaks down all the elements that shape the communication itself. So the model itself is like it gives a structured way to understand how meaning is constructed in a specific speech event. So in every speech event, by looking at this speaking model, you're gonna analyze every detail that shapes that communication, so it makes it more structured. So what do I mean in this? It's like an abbreviation for all the things that needed in this model. So each letter represents a word that that as part of the elements of the model. For instance, S here refers to setting and scene, P for participants, E for ends, A for act sequence, K for key, I for instrumentalities, N for norm of interactions, and then G for genre. Let's break down each of them. So first, we have setting and scene. Setting and scene basically means the physical location of the speech, like where does the conversation take place? Is it at home? Is it outside? Is it a cafe? Is it in a hotel? So all of the things that related to the location of where the communication or where the conversation takes place. Second is called participants. Participants are basically about the people who are speaking, the people who are involved in the communication, or like who are the interlocutors, who are the people that involved in that communication. Is it me? Is it me and you? Is it my sister and her boyfriend? Is it my mom and my dad? All of the stuff that related to people who talk, people who have that communication, have that conversation. And then third, we have ends. Ends basically means the purpose or the reason of the speaking. Like, what is the reason behind engaging in a conversation? What is the goal of that communication, of that conversation itself? Like, what is the intention, or what is something that they want to achieve? When I, for instance, when I talk with you, what are we talking about, and why are we talking about it? Why is that important? Why is this topic is important? So that's ends. And then we have act sequence, is literally the speech acts and the order. And then we have key. Key is the way the speaking is performed, which relates to tone, manner, and delivery. And then it's all of the elements that combine in when you deliver the message. So it's basically the way you deliver your messages. And then we have instrumentalities, which is the mode or tools of communication used. It can be what language are you using, what dialect are you using, what type of communication media that you use to talk, etc., etc. And then we have norms of interaction, which is the social rules of what is proper in the communication or in the conversations. Like, what is appropriate? Is this morally correct? Is this not morally correct? Is this respectful way of saying it? So that's all parts of norms. And then we have genre, which is the type of speech act or event within the culture. Like, what is the type of communication? Is it a debate? Is it just joking? Is it just casual conversation, etc.? So it's all part of genre. Okay, that's all for the explanation. Now we're moving on to examples. I'm going to give you an example from an article. So it was from a research by Satyawati in 2022. The title is The Analysis of Delheim Speaking Model in the Communication Among the Infertility Husband and Wife. It's actually a real article, so you guys can look it up. But this is like the breakdowns of how Ms. Satyawati used the model to analyze her research. So setting and scenes. So setting and scenes in this case is like at the participants' own homes. So it's basically the setting is at home at night and between the husband and wife. And then the participants, of course, are the husband and wife, because they're the ones who speak, the one who hears, and then the one who speak and hearing. So they're both the interlocutors. And then for the ends is they want to seek a mutual solution to have children and respecting each other to maintain a relationship. So the intention of so the goal of them to have that conversation is because they need a solution to have children, and at the same time to respect each other to maintain the relationship. So that's like the goal of them having that conversation. And then active sequence, starting from awkward conversations into arguing. So they started as being awkward. It started as something like awkward conversations, and then suddenly they got serious, and then that started problems, and then that became an argument. So it's like it's like the sequence of the conversation. And then for the key is they have the serious and bleeding and anger and loud voice. So it's like the tone of them talking. And then for the manners, they use also a little bit non-verbal by the way they pointing at the other person, the way they silence each other, stuff like that. So it's all parts of the way that they deliver the conversation. And then for the instrumentalities, they use oral speech or verbal, so they speak in right away, but they also have a little bit of Balinese accent. So there was a little bit code mixing between the two. So it's more like so this is what they used to communicate. And then for the norms of interaction is how the husband and wife took turn to be a hearer and speaker. So they respect each other by listening to the other person stop talking until their turn. So they don't stop each other, so they just wait for each other to stop talking first, because they want it so the communication goes equal. And then for the genre used is quarrel or debate. It was a debate, so that's the genre of the conversation. So that's basically how you apply the theory when you analyze a conversation. So as long as it fits to all the structures, then it's good. Okay, now we're moving on to article reviews. So first article that I chose was from this called The Analysis of Speech Events and Time Speaking Factors in the Community in the comedy television series Friends. Everybody should know what Friends is because it's really popular. So they're analyzing some conversations that happened during the movie series. So there are three speech events that they analyzed, but I only took one example. Here, setting and scene, they're talking about a date, and they talked about it in Central Park Cafe, so it's an informal setting. And then the participants are these four names: Monica, Joey, Phoebe, and others. And then the goals is because they want to seek validation and support regarding her date. And then for the act sequence, Monica discusses her date, and then they started to joke, and then she downplays the significance. And then the key here is they talk about it in a joking way. And then instrumentalities is informal oral communication, so they talk in person, it's also informal, so it's casual. And then for the norms, they use a little bit of humor and sarcasm, because so this is the way because they're already friends, so they're comfortable to use humor and sarcasm. And then the genre is friendly chat. So each of the speech events aligns with speaking model. And then for the second example is by Miss Ramilia Laksmi Utari Umar and others, with the title A Discourse Analysis on Workplace with Time Speaking Model Between Owner and Staff in Puri Itoma Corporate in Kuta Lombok, a study of ethnography of communication. As I studied before, it's not only in Pragmatics, so they analyze this in the lens of ethnography. For the setting and scene, afternoon briefing session at the bungalows, and then the participants, there are two company owners and one sales marketing. And then the goals is because they want to discuss about sales process and and their future agenda. And then for the sequence is they begin with casual greetings, and then they started to discuss customer service preparation. They also put jokes. They also talk about the project updates. And then for the key, they're talking about it in a friendly and joking tone, despite of their hierarchical differences, because they come from different ages. That's one. And then second, they come from different positions, but they still can be friendly to each other. And then for the instrumentalities, face-to-face interaction as well, with the mix of formal and informal, because it's also about the company. And in norms of interaction, they maintain politeness, and they also use clear and concise speech. So they're still polite, and then their speech is also clear and concise. And then for the genre, it's a mix of workplace briefing combined with casual conversation. So from only this, you can tell what conversation that are happening. People who work in the office, in the bungalows, and talk about their business, and the way they also keep their friendly relationship between each other. Third example is called Fields of Text Studies and Discourse Analysis, a study in light of applying Delheim's speaking model to Joe Biden's speech in the Middle East. So as you can see here, the setting delivered formally at the White House because it's the president, and then the participants are the Biden to global audiences. The global audience is more like the hearers, so it's like a one-way communication. And then for the goals or the ends, because his speech is because he want to support Israel's right to self-defense while promoting peaceful resolution. And then for the X sequence, it's structured with clear statements supporting Israel and urging a ceasefire. And then for the key is formal with a serious tone because it's part of diplomatic speech. And then instrumentalities, it was broadcasted and it's shared between media online, so it's more like general. And then for the norms of interaction, it's diplomatic forms that's focusing on peace. And then for the genre, it's a political speech, so there's a lot of sensitive issues that are being stated diplomatically by Biden. So it shows that from this article that the speaking model is effective to analyze political speeches like Biden's speech. So it basically at the same time helps it to uncover the. Lastly is the study of ethnography of communication in discourse analysis with Haim speaking model by Dr. Ramos Ray. So in here it talks about academic department meeting in a college, so that's the setting, and then the participants are the teachers and the staff with similar backgrounds and language, and then for the ends is to discuss academic affairs, and then X equals the structured order of speech according to seniority, and then for the key is a formal respectful tone reflecting hierarchy, and then instrumentalities is face-to-face interactions in Magali language, and then norms of interaction is the cultural expectations from respectful communication. As you can see all here, that it's just basically how the communication style, the social status, and the cultural norms influence the speech. Using Haim speaking model, it demonstrates how the social and occupational status shapes interactions which reflect to both individual identity and group solidarity, because here it talks about academics, it talks about all the teachers and the people in academic department. In conclusion, speech situations and events emphasize the importance of context in shaping meaning. So these two models actually give us insights about how to analyze language and how the language itself functions in different settings and various settings, from casual to formal situations or discourses. So by applying these concepts, we learn more about how language both reflects and shapes social interactions, which at the same time, in the end of the day, affect how our ability to communicate effectively even more. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this all helped and give better understanding of speaking Haims and speech situations. Thank you.